Paul Martin. Well, the prospect of that vacuum being filled was looking slightly more likely this evening when the French President Jacques Chirac took to the airwaves on national television to say France would command the UN force and that it would send another 1,600 troops. The French were key, of course, to the initial drafting of the ceasefire 10 days ago, but they've come under intense international pressure since then to commit real numbers.
La France est prête.
France is ready if the United Nations wishes to continue commanding this force.
But the French on their own won't be enough. The UN wants to send 15,000 international troops to southern Lebanon to back up the Lebanese army by September the 2nd. There are currently 2,000 UNIFIL troops in the area. Italy has offered 3,000 and the French contingent of 2,000 still leaves 8,000 to be found. Well, shortly before we came on air, I spoke to Miri Eisen, a senior policy advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister. What was Israel's response, I asked, to that French offer?
I think it's very important that the French president has pledged that amount of troops. And I think it also shows that the international community understands the importance of being in southern Lebanon. The faster and the stronger that this international force is in Lebanon, the quicker we'll be able to depart, the quicker we'll be able to stop the blockade.
Do you think you'll get to the full 15,000?
I think that we will reach that number. There are additional countries that have said that they would add in troops. And I think that the fact that the French have decided to send troops will bring in additional nations.
But what do you realistically think these troops can achieve there? We were hearing from a French general yesterday who made it clear Israel cannot expect EU troops to disarm Hezbollah.
You know, I think, Emily, that one of the major things that's happened from the last month of war is the recognition that Hezbollah has to be disarmed. And in that sense, you cannot have a terrorist organization, a state within a state, a second army inside Lebanon. In Resolution 1701, there is one country, and that's Lebanon. Lebanon, the sovereign country. The Lebanese government is taking responsibility for what's happening there. They're not supposed to do it on their own. The idea is that the international force will help the Lebanese army disarm Hezbollah.
Forgive me for interrupting. You heard the quote from Italy. It can't send in soldiers whilst the IDF continues to shoot, whilst your own soldiers continue to shoot. Will you address that point?
There is international backing and understanding to the fact that Israel will continue to defend itself against this terrorist organization, which has unprovoked attacks against Israel. And look at where it's brought not only Israel and Lebanon, but the stability in the Middle East. Terrorist organizations cannot define our future, the Lebanese future, or the future of the Middle East.
Well, it's interesting you say that. The US House of Representatives Intelligence Committee concluded just yesterday this battle had actually strengthened Iran's regional power further. What would you have to say to that?
I think that we all see clearly the involvement of Iran, both directly and indirectly, and I think in the sense that Iran is a major player or adversary in this axis of the countries who support terror. They are a state that sponsors terror.
Let's look at your position domestically. We're still awaiting Ehud Olmert's decision on whether to hold a full state commission on the conduct of war. As his senior advisor, would you tell him to do so?
I think that in Israel right now, what you're seeing is the open debate of a democracy after a war, and every war has a price. And I think that the decision about the inquiry will be made within days. There's no question in Israel that we have a need to understand what happened. But Emily, right now we're trying to focus on the future. There still is a threat against Israel, both from Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed terrorist organization on our northern border, and additional threats. And we have to prepare ourselves.
Isn't the truth, Miri Eisen, that decision may be made for you? We're looking at mounting criticism at home, possible backlash. We've heard from Israeli reserve soldiers, indeed one retiring senior army officer, who said that the military felt a certain sense of failure, and I quote, "We have sinned the sin of hubris," that this war did not work.
It's It's a very close friend of mine who said those words, and I understand them and I feel for them. And as an Israeli, we've all looked and asked questions, and there's no question here that this war has brought up questions about how democracies fight terror, how you prepare a state against terrorism, and how we also face a sovereign country next to us who allows a terrorist organization to grow there.
Would you concede that mistakes had been made?
Oh, I would say clearly that both Prime Minister Olmert and the government itself has said that mistakes have been made. We're a democracy. You make decisions, and I have to tell you, when you make decisions, you can also make decisions that you'll say in hindsight were not right. But the main decision that was made, and it was made on the first evening, was the decision that Israel would not succumb to terror, that we would not allow a terrorist organization to define not only what happens between Israel and Lebanon, but what happens in the Middle East. And that was a major decision. It was a right decision, and it has changed the situation dramatically because the entire world now is talking about the fact that you can't have terrorist organizations doing whatever they want inside a sovereign state.
Miri Eisen, many thanks indeed for your time tonight.